So let's talk about Donald Trump. Yes, that Donald Trump. He recently had a chat, or perhaps a little problem as he put it, with Apple's CEO, Tim Cook. This fascinating exchange apparently happened during a state visit to Qatar in May 2025. You know, just a casual conversation starter. Trump, in his uniquely direct way, told Cook he doesn't want Apple building iPhones in India anymore. No sir, he wants those shiny rectangles assembled right back in the good old US of A. It's a bold statement, one that probably made Tim Cook spill his tea or whatever tech billionaires drink. The main argument, as it often is with these grand pronouncements, is jobs. American jobs, to be precise. Trump's vision involves factories buzzing with American workers, all diligently putting together your next iPhone. It sounds wonderfully patriotic, doesn't it? A return to American manufacturing glory. However, this vision conveniently sidesteps a few, shall we say, minor details. Details like Apple's rather complex global supply chain, the significantly higher labor costs in the United States, and what this might do to the price of the phone you're probably reading this on. It's a simple solution to a problem that is, in reality, incredibly complicated. Currently, Apple has been, shall we say, rather enthusiastic about India. The company has been ramping up its iPhone production there at a dizzying pace. We're talking about a substantial portion of their global output. This isn't just a small workshop, it's a significant strategic move for Apple, driven by various global pressures and economic realities. To suggest unwinding this rapidly expanding operation is like asking a chef to unbake a cake. It's not just difficult, it's fundamentally messy and might ruin the cake, or in this case, Apple's entire production model for years to come. This request, if we can call it that, sets the stage for a rather dramatic economic and political showdown. It's not just about Apple or iPhones, it's about international trade, employment landscapes in two massive countries, and the very real cost of consumer electronics. Will Apple bow to this pressure? What would it mean for your next iPhone upgrade if they did? And what about India, which has become a key player in Apple's global strategy? Grab your popcorn, folks, because this is going to be quite the show with potentially very expensive tickets for everyone involved. Right now, India is a big deal for Apple's iPhone production, a really big deal. We're talking about manufacturing operations that produced around $22 billion worth of iPhones in the year ending March 2025. That's a staggering 60% increase from the previous year. Think about that growth. It's not a trickle, it's a flood. In fact, roughly 1 in every 5 iPhones sold globally now comes out of India. They're not just making the basic models either. Apple produces its entire iPhone lineup there, including those fancy Titanium Pro models. So, India is not just a bit player, it's a star. Why India, you ask? Well, it wasn't just a random dart throw at a map. Apple's move to significantly expand in India was a calculated decision. Part of it was about diversifying away from China, especially after COVID-19 showed the risks of having all your manufacturing eggs in one basket. Plus, those pesky US-China trade tensions didn't help. But a huge, unmissable factor is labor costs. Simply put, it's cheaper to assemble an iPhone in India than it would be in, say, Des Moines. We're talking average wages of around $290 a month in India versus a minimum wage in the US that translates to nearly $2,900 a month. That's a big difference. This expansion has, unsurprisingly, created a lot of jobs in India. Over 60,000 Indians are directly involved in these iPhone assembly lines. These are significant numbers, providing livelihoods and boosting local economies. Apple, along with its manufacturing partners like Foxconn, has invested heavily in setting up these sophisticated production facilities. It's a testament to India's growing manufacturing capabilities. They've shown they can produce these high-tech devices at scale, and to Apple's exacting standards, which, as anyone who's ever dealt with a cracked screen knows, are quite high. From India's perspective, this has been a strategic win, at least in terms of volume and job creation. The Indian government has even encouraged this through initiatives like the Production Linked Incentive (PLI) scheme, offering subsidies to attract manufacturing. However, it's worth noting that India reportedly earns less than $30 per iPhone assembled, with a chunk of that coming from these government subsidies. So, while the headlines boast massive production values, the direct financial return per unit for the country itself is relatively modest. It's more about the jobs and integrating into global tech supply chains. Now let's get to the bit that affects your wallet. If Trump gets his way and Apple is somehow strong-armed into moving iPhone assembly back to the USA, get ready for some serious sticker shock. The numbers are quite stark. Currently, the cost to assemble an iPhone in India or China is estimated to be around $30 per device. That's manageable. But if that assembly moves to the US, experts predict that cost could skyrocket to nearly $390 per device. Yes, you read that right. From $30 to almost $400. That's not a small jump, it's a financial pole vault. This dramatic increase in assembly cost would, naturally, wreak havoc on Apple's profit margins. Right now, Apple makes a healthy profit on each iPhone, roughly around $450 per unit for a typical model. If assembly costs balloon by an extra $360, that profit margin shrinks to a mere $60 per phone, unless of course Apple decides to pass that extra cost on to you, the consumer. And let's be honest, which option do you think a massive corporation is more likely to choose? It's probably not the one where they quietly absorb a $360 hit on every single phone they sell. It's also important to understand where the value in an iPhone currently comes from. For a typical iPhone selling in the US for around $1,000, the assembly part done in India or China only accounts for about $30 of that price. The lion's share, around $450, goes to Apple for branding, software development and marketing, things largely done in the US. US-based component manufacturers also get a slice, around $80. So the Made in India part is actually a very small fraction of the final cost, but it's a cost-effective fraction. Shifting it stateside would inflate that small fraction massively. And if all that wasn't enough to make your bank account nervous, Trump has also floated the idea of a potential 25% tariff on iPhones made in India if Apple doesn't comply. So even if production doesn't fully relocate, just the threat of tariffs could lead to price increases. This tariff could also face legal challenges, with some, like the California Attorney General, already raising eyebrows. It's a complex web of potential costs, and almost every thread seems to lead to a more expensive iPhone for everyone, not just in India, but globally. So what are the broader economic ripples if this grand American iPhone dream becomes reality? In the US, the promise is more jobs. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick even painted a picture of an AI industrial revolution, where American workers wouldn't be doing tedious assembly line tasks. Oh no, they'd be highly paid technicians overseeing sophisticated robotic arms. It sounds futuristic and appealing. But the question remains, can robots truly replace the cost-effectiveness of lower-wage human assembly for such a massive volume of devices? And will those high-paying tech jobs materialize in the numbers needed to justify the upheaval? It's a big gamble. For India, the picture is mixed. If Apple were to significantly scale back its operations, it would undoubtedly mean the loss of those 60,000-plus jobs, which is a serious blow. It would also be a setback to India's ambitions to become a global manufacturing hub for electronics. However, some analysts suggest it's not all doom and gloom. India could then choose to redirect its efforts and investments into building capabilities in other critical areas of the tech supply chain, such as chip production, battery manufacturing, or display technology. It could be a forced pivot to higher-value components. Behind all this economic chess are, of course, political motivations. Is Trump's push truly about creating a legion of high-paid robotic wranglers in America? Or is it, as some analysts believe, a classic negotiation tactic? Perhaps it's a way to pressure India into a more favorable trade deal, especially given Trump's past comments about India's high tariff barriers, making it very hard to sell American products there. His rhetoric often serves multiple purposes, and this could be a high-stakes poker game aimed at extracting concessions, with Apple caught in the middle. Ultimately, Apple finds itself in an incredibly awkward position. The company has spent years carefully building a complex, efficient, and cost-effective global supply chain. Now it faces immense political pressure to dismantle a significant part of it. This isn't just a business decision, it's a geopolitical hot potato. The potential outcomes range from a slight shift in strategy to a full-blown manufacturing overhaul, with massive implications for iPhone prices, global trade relations, and the economies of two of the world's largest nations. One thing is certain, Tim Cook is probably stocking up on antacids.